I'm Ari and this is TRM Talks. I am Global Head of Policy at TRM Labs. At TRM, we provide blockchain intelligence software to support law enforcement investigations and to help financial institutions and cryptocurrency businesses mitigate financial crime risk within the emerging digital asset economy. Prior to joining TRM, I spent 15 years in the U.S. federal government, first as a prosecutor at the Department of Justice, and then as a Treasury Department official, where I worked to safeguard the financial system against terrorist financiers, weapons of mass destruction proliferators, drug kingpins, and other rogue actors. On TRM Talks, I sit down with business leaders, policymakers, investigators, and friends from across the crypto ecosystem who are working to build a safer financial system. On today's TRM Talks, I sit down with the head of blockchain and digital assets at UOB, Kah Kit Yip. But first, inside the lab, where I share data-driven insights from our blockchain intelligence team. On today's Inside the Lab, we'll zoom in on the DEA and federal prosecutors' recent operation, seizing 5.5 million in USDT tied to an international cartel money laundering scheme, with TRM Labs providing critical support. In this case, the cartel used a multi-layered laundering scheme, converting illicit cash into stablecoins, routing funds across chains, leveraging unhosted wallets, and mixing through shell entities to obscure origins. TRM's on-chain forensics traced those flows, identified key bridges and laundering choke points, and helped build the evidentiary trail from street networks into the crypto ecosystem. Because TRM's analytics could map the path of funds, even when commingled or cross-chain, the investigation could attribute specific transactions to the scheme and support judicial seizure. This is a vivid example of how blockchain transparency, paired with excellent law enforcement tracing and investigative skills, could help interdict financial crime at scale. That's Inside the Lab for today, showing how crypto is not a hiding place, but a traceable trail when the right tools and partnerships are in play. And now, Kah Kit Yip. Today, I'm joined by Kah Kit Yip, the head of blockchain and digital assets at UOB. Kah Kit, thank you so much for joining us today. I've really been looking forward to this conversation.
Thanks, Ari, for having me.
Would you talk a little bit about your journey? How did you end up going from being a regulator, and I would love to hear about that, to your current role as really leading the blockchain and digital assets work at UOB?
So I'm always intrigued and passionate about how we can change lives through policies. That's one of the reasons that I joined the central bank. And I joined the legal department first and have my fair share of setting up, foundational legal frameworks that help with financial regulation. I also have a stint at a public prosecutor where I managed to help enforce some of our financial sector laws.
That's really interesting. So did you start your career as a prosecutor and then it was to the Malaysian central bank?
Yeah, so I joined the legal department of the central bank, and we are given a delegation of authority or fiat by the public prosecutor to help them prosecute some of the financial sector laws. So I have a short stint of about 3 years enforcing the financial services laws in Malaysia, prosecuting companies that roll out, illegal investment schemes, enforcing some of our insurance laws. And I think those are really the foundational years where I get to see how the policies that we set at the central bank does actually make a difference in terms of promoting a safer and also a more efficient financial system. But I also feel that my role as a prosecutor is very targeted. It's always case by case. I think after 6 years at the legal department, I decided to shift to a policy role. And at that time, I think payments was booming. Digitalization is starting. People are using cards and also electronic payments as a replacement of cash. But there are still a lot of frictions, and cash and checks are relatively free. People are used to it. And hence, to migrate the population to use digital payments will require, I think, some public policy catalysts or enablers. And hence, when I was at the Payment Services Policy Department, I was responsible for coming up with pricing policies and also market incentive frameworks that would help shift the population to use digital payments. And I think one of the key infrastructure enablers that we put in place is to launch the real-time fast payment system, which is called Do It Now in Malaysia. And I think it's a game changer because of its role as a foundational digital infrastructure. It helps to link up the siloed digital wallets that are rolled out by banks and also non-banks. And also it helps to create that network effects that makes it convenient for Malaysians to transact with one another. So we did it relatively well, I would say, in Malaysia. I think our neighbors in Singapore and Thailand, they have their own real-time payment system as well. And so we thought of, if we can deliver benefits at the domestic level, can we shift that to the cross-border space by linking our fast payment systems? I think our colleagues at MAS and Bank of Thailand, they were the first to link up fast payment system to enable real-time cross-border peer-to-peer transfers. And we then follow up with a linkage with our colleagues at Bank of Thailand to enable real-time QR payments. So those are bilateral links. Hence, my next, career shift is that I think it came quite opportunistically because the BI's Innovation Hub just set up shop in Singapore, and they were looking at how they could promote the use of more efficient cross-border payments within ASEAN. And they are already bilateral links. They are fantastic, but they are not the most efficient. If you link up 3 payment systems, you need 3 links, but 20 payment systems, you need 190 links. So it's not scalable. At that time, I think the BI's Innovation Hub, they have created Project Nexus, which is a multilateral model of linking up fast payment systems. And I was fortunate to be able to join the team to see how we can take this, from pilot to production. So I joined the BIS Innovation Hub for the last 3 years, where I work closely with the team to develop the foundational building blocks. And that includes the governance structure, the scheme rulebook, as well as a viable commercial model that would then help bring a multilateral model of fast payment system linkage to the real world. So the Nexus Global Payments is the entity that is established by the central banks to implement this model, has been established since last year. And, with that job done, I recently just moved to the private sector. I see it as an opportunity for me to come full circle because I've been with the public sector for the past 18 years. And I really, want to have an opportunity to get my hands dirty, to build solutions from the private side, and potentially to also shift from providing meaningful access to the public to enhancing the financial well-being of our clients and also customers. So UOB, the bank that I'm working in, an ASEAN bank, so we have presence in 5 key ASEAN markets, namely Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, and also Vietnam. And we also have, a strong base of individuals and also SMEs, as well as corporates. And we really want to see how we can deliver safe, efficient, and also innovative solutions to help them, with their day-to-day transactions and as well as businesses.
I love your journey, and I think I probably relate to it a fair amount, just having been a prosecutor and then a regulator and now in private sector. Getting to UOB, which is obviously new for you, you spent 18 years as a regulator and a policymaker. One thing I found certainly in joining the private sector is that there's a huge amount of impact that you could have because you're actually taking the policy making and you're putting it into the real world, essentially, right? You're supporting clients and customers. Talk a little bit about what you're working on as head of digital assets and blockchain at UOB. What types of initiatives, what type of focus on cryptocurrencies or blockchain technology is happening at the bank?
Yeah, so I lead the blockchain and digital asset team within UOB. So we are a center of excellence that helps the bank and also our clients to navigate the fast evolving blockchain and digital asset space. We know that technology moves very fast and it will redefine the way that we transact and do business in the future. And hence, among the projects that we have been working on for quite a while now is to see how we can provide a faster and more efficient way for our customers to conduct cross-border payments. Invariably, we do have a lot of cross-border payment services right now. I think the benefits of leveraging a blockchain is that it will facilitate programmability. so that certain rules can be encoded into the blockchain and self-execute, such that I think that will bring a lot of efficiencies that we may not see in the current fiat rails. Additionally, as well, I think due to the peer-to-peer nature of blockchain, it can also reduce intermediaries and also shorten the transaction chain. And I think payments is only half of the story. While we enable faster and safer payment infrastructure for our customer, we also want to see how digital assets can also be used to allow our customers to invest, their surplus funds and derive a greater efficiency and potentially higher returns. We are also actively looking at how we can provide institutional-grade custody solution for customers so that they, in addition to having an account with us, they can also deposit and keep digital assets, be it tokenized bonds, stablecoins, or tokenized MMF with us. And we help them to then trade, buy and sell, or to pledge it as a collateral. And we provide asset servicing services that will then help them meet their investment goals as well as to bridge any funding gaps as and when they need it.
That's fantastic. I mean, it's taking the policy at the Bank of Malaysia and BIS and really testing it in the real world. What does it actually take to move from that proof of concept to doing it in the real world like you're doing it today?
Yes. So I think technology, for instance, is the bedrock, the foundation. But having technology innovation alone may not be sufficient, because I think for an emerging innovation like blockchain and digital asset to be introduced in a production environment, to be adopted by millions of users, there's a need for other fundamental building blocks to be put in place. And I think there are three key things that I think would be needed. Firstly would be the legal and regulatory clarity. And that is important because, especially for the regulated financial industry that are used to adhering to multiple financial as well as legal regulations, having the regulated clarity of what would need to be put in place and what are the corresponding requirements, be it AML, CFT, capital requirements, or even data protection. I think that would be needed to scale the adoption of a digital asset beyond the current pilots and POC that we see today. And the second thing, I suppose, is interoperability standards and protocols, because the world is likely to be a coexistence of multiple systems and networks. There won't be a single system that will rule it all. Hence, being able to stitch up the different siloed networks or walled gardens will be critical. And because that would then deliver the network effects that will make it meaningful for customers and also corporates to adopt digital asset or blockchain in a big way. And I think last but not least would be a safe settlement asset. I think that also links back to the siloed networks that we see being churned out every day. So to bridge two separate networks, and of course we can leverage on commercial bank money or private sector coins, but that may not be the most ideal situation. So if we can mimic what we see in the domestic landscape, where you have banks that can exchange funds with one another using central bank money as the safe settlement asset, I think that would be the best model if we can adopt at the cross-border perspective as well. So while we have different tokenized ecosystem, each with their own tokenized coins or asset, having a safe settlement asset that can bridge the two ecosystem would be key. And on this front, I think at UOB, we have been working with MAS to test the wholesale CBDC under Project Orchid as well as Project Guardian. And recently at the SFF Singapore FinTech Festival, we showcased a live pilot of a wholesale CBDC settlement for interbank lending between three banks in Singapore. So we have demonstrated that this can happen using real funds, and we hope that this experiment can be scaled up to cover other use cases and potentially be rolled out in the real world. At the UOB, we are also participating in the SWIFT Digital Ledger project. We are one of the 39 pioneer banks. They are working alongside with SWIFT to see how we can develop the next generation settlement infrastructure, a cross-border settlement infrastructure that leverages tokenized asset as a means to securely and also efficiently settle transactions between countries.
Amazing. How do you see the work around stablecoins and tokenized deposits really changing the mechanics of money movements for banks and customers?
Yeah, so I think they are potential game changers because tokenized money, be it stablecoin or tokenized deposit, they are tokenized money on blockchain. So it allows value to be transferred in real time with finality. Having that to replace the current system that maybe clears twice a day and settle at a later time, having that atomicity and also instant settlement would definitely be key to unlock liquidity and to facilitate more use cases. I would say as well, I think the programmability is also another key benefit of stablecoin and also tokenized deposit and blockchain in general. So we often complain that regulations are important to help us mitigate risks. Having to deal with multiple requirements, which often differ between countries, may add time and cost to cross-border payments. Hence, if we can leverage on programmable compliance, where the compliance rules are encoded into the smart contracts so that we can auto-execute the compliance processes. And if we can front-load this process at the beginning, we can potentially increase.
What a great answer. You're working across so many different countries, languages, cultures, licensing regimes, requirements. And at UOB, you're working across those 5 or 6 different countries. I love the answer around programmability to solve a lot of the cross-border nature. I'd say that there was a theme of 2025. It was really institutional adoption. I think we moved from a world where the crypto players were sort of the most important parts of the ecosystem to a world where the financial institutions were playing a really, really critical role here. Looking a little bit into the future, right? How do you see the role of financial institutions like UOB playing in the blockchain ecosystem?
I think banks will continue to play a key role in the tokenized finance ecosystem, both as a trusted anchor as well as an orchestrator of payments and a bridge between the fiat as well as the tokenized ecosystem. So over the years, we have built a wide network of connectivity, not just to market infrastructure, but also across countries, either through our subsidiaries or through our Nostro bank agents. So in a way, I think the bank will act as a bridge between both the existing as well as the new ecosystem. And the second role that I think banks generally will play is to act as a compliance guardian for the financial ecosystem. Through all the workflows and processes and infrastructure that we have put in place to embed compliance into our processes and workflow, that would definitely help any customers and corporates to ensure that whatever transaction that they make, be it in the tokenized money or tokenized asset space, will adhere to the prevailing as well as the applicable rules and regulation. And just now we talked about programmable compliance. That is also another area that I think the bank will be best positioned to implement that, leveraging on the experience as well as the expertise that we have built over the years.
Really awesome. We're seeing institutional adoption. We're seeing this ecosystem grow. We're seeing trillions, ultimately, of activity. What role do regulators play going forward?
Yeah, I think the regulators in APAC have done a wonderful job in putting in place conducive policies to foster experimentation and also innovation in the digital asset space. While some work has been done to provide the frameworks in which tokenized assets or even tokenized money can be rolled out, I think a lot more can be done to make clear, for not just the financial sector players, but also for individuals and corporates to be able to deal with digital asset with confidence. Beyond financial sector laws, there are also other legal frameworks that may need to be updated such that they are able to support the growth of digital asset. For instance, accounting treatment, stamp duty laws, tax treatment. Those are areas where I think they're still evolving. But if this can be accelerated and be done in a coordinated way, I think it will really help to move the needle in terms of spurring and also scaling the adoption of digital asset. So legal clarity is one, but legal alignment in terms of policy outcomes will also be key because then that would then help to mitigate arbitrage by bad actors, as well as I suppose it will help to reduce costs for entities that would like to scale regionally as well as globally, which can then be translated into lower costs, to end users. Standard setting, I think the regulators have also done a great job. I think at the MAS, Global Layer 1 has rolled out some of the toolkits, including the compliance toolkit recently at the SFF that can help different players within the digital asset ecosystem to adopt technology and to ensure interoperability between them. So I think if we can also accelerate the work, not just from the perspective of interoperability protocols, but also to look at how, for instance, identity or compliance can be subject to some level of standardization in terms of the technical standards. I think that would then help to ensure a more seamless, end-to-end exchange of data value between the different players. And last but not least, I suppose, is the role of foundational utilities or digital infrastructure. And we have seen this done quite successfully in the fiat world. Fast payment system helps to link up the siloed networks and also the different wallets that are issued by banks and non-banks. So likewise, in the digital asset space, there is a role. I'm not saying that there should be only one system or one network, but there should be sufficient market infrastructure or utility that help connect the disparate tokenized networks or ecosystem that we have today, so that there is scale, there is network effects that would then help deepen the liquidity as well as the business case for individuals and businesses to deal with digital assets. And I think those three areas would be key preconditions, which we think both the public as well as the private sector should jointly work together to put in place such that the digital asset ecosystem can continue to thrive moving forward.
I love that answer. 4 or 5 pillars there. I feel like we could turn that into a white paper and provide it to every regulator, around the globe. These are the things that business really needs. You did mention illicit actors at one point in the last answer, and this wouldn't be a TRM Talks if I didn't ask you at least one question about financial crime. So from a risk perspective, as you see it, what is the single biggest challenge posed in terms of financial crime by faster cross-border value transfer at the speed of the internet, right? Blockchain technology. How do you think about risk when it comes to illicit finance in particular, and what should institutions do to mitigate?
Yeah, so faster cross-border payments is a double-edged sword. So on one hand, it is super convenient. It solves a lot of pain points. But at the same time, it can also be exploited by the bad actors to drain funds out of an account within seconds and disseminate it to multiple new accounts across both fiat as well as tokenized ecosystem, and eventually, transfer into a hosted wallet that can be traced. I mean, it can be traced, but you can't really locate or arrest the person because of the anonymity of the wallet holder. So essentially, I think the single bigger risk in the current digital payment landscape that we are operating in is the velocity as well as the anonymity of transactions. And we have to harness technology to fight these new threats because, like it or not, the bad actors are leveraging on technology as well. And not just the conventional technology, but the most up-to-date technology stack that they can have. So for financial institutions, I think there are potentially 3 areas that we can look into. The first one is to fight speed with speed. And to do that, we would need to leverage on some of the latest technology. For instance, if we can have real-time risk scoring, leveraging on the data that can be analyzed in the digital payment space, and use that as a means to predict or to flag potentially fraudulent or potentially high-risk transaction, such that we can stop transactions before it is executed. So it's a bit like a preemptive move. We can harness technology like generative AI or machine learning and use the feedback loop, whether it's false negative, false positive, and use that to constantly improve the model. I think that could potentially be quite a powerful enabler. And when I was at the BIS Innovation Hub, we have work on this model through Project Aurora and also Project Herta. And recently, I think my colleagues have also rolled out Project Nadim that seek to push the boundary further to look at how cross-border sharing of risk indicators can be done in a privacy-enhancing way. So I talk about fighting speed with speed, leveraging on technology. I think the second key thing that we can do as a community is to foster collaborative sharing of intelligence in a privacy-enhancing way. Because criminals operate in networks, and for banks, we can't operate in silo, right? Because it's a self-defeating strategy. Having a mechanism that can allow banks to securely share data, risk indicators, even typologies in a privacy-enhancing way would be a game changer. And I think at the MAS, they have rolled out Cosmic, which is a platform to share AML risk indicators. And at Bank Negara Malaysia, they've also introduced the National Fraud Portal that facilitate secure sharing of mule account data and also facilitate the traceability of fraud funds. And last but not least, I think we have to move beyond the financial sector, because the life cycle of a crime typically start outside of the financial sector. And hence, to have that end-to-end visibility as well as capability, we would need to foster a whole ecosystem approach that potentially bring in collaborators from the telco industry, from the social media companies, to then collaboratively see how we can work together to identify as well as to predict and stop fraudulent and criminal activities before it became too large.
That answer really, really resonates. As you know, at TRM, we built the Beacon network in large part for your two first reasons. And that is, one, bad actors are now able to move faster than ever before. So regular compliance controls, you're not able to disrupt and ultimately seize back illicit proceeds. So that is exactly why we built Beacon and why we're leveraging AI today at every part of our platform. So absolutely aligned there. I have a fun question for you. And that is, as you've been talking, I realized that BIS has the coolest naming conventions, I think, for their projects. How does BIS come up with their naming conventions for these projects?
I get asked a lot about this question, and I may not be able to speak on behalf of BIS Innovation Hub now that I've left them. But what I could say that it is by design. I mean, the names are by design, and it is being created or selected through, I think, a very rigorous process that involves a lot of stakeholder engagement.
Amazing.
I will leave the direct answer to be perhaps provided by the head of the BIS Innovation Hub. But I mean, rest assured, it is not by fluke, it is by design.
It feels very intentional. Last question, and another fun one. You spend most of your time thinking about cross-border payments and the future of financial technology. What do you do when you are relaxing a little bit? Hobbies, interests? What do you like to do in your free time?
So I like running and also reading during my free time. So for running, I find it as a good way for me to zone out, recharge, and come back with a fresh perspective. And being working in this space, I can't help but thinking of all the issues as I run. And sometimes, having that space to myself helps to churn out some aha moments, which then, help me to untangle some of the issues that I face at work. So I like running so much that I started running marathons since last year, and I've ran 2.
Amazing.
And I find it to be quite addictive as well, because once you have done it, you feel like you constantly want to do it again and achieve a better personal best. So I see that as perhaps a healthy way to constantly push myself in a non-professional perspective. I also like reading, and just now we talked about my previous life as a prosecutor. So I like reading crime novels. I love the adrenaline rush, the mystery, and the cool ways in which the mystery is solved by the investigator. So I'm a big fan of Sherlock Holmes novels. I also like James Patterson. So yeah, so I think maybe at some point in my life I may become a criminal investigator.
I love that, or at least a novelist that writes about criminal investigators. I love the Sherlock Holmes analogy. Really, I mean, in many respects, that's what you are, is sort of out there trying to discover clues on how we can build technology to do financial transactions better than ever before. And the running thing obviously really hits home. I've done about 40 marathons.
Wow.
And have that same feeling, right? The last 6 miles, you pretty much want to die. But then when you cross that finish line, you have this extraordinary feeling of accomplishment that you just want to have over and over and over again. And I love how you articulated that, because it's something I have felt very deeply. I see you nodding here. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I think it's a wonderful feeling. In a way, I see it as a metaphor to a lot of the challenges that we face in life, where it always seems difficult. You feel like giving up. And in the 2 marathons I've run, I've gone through that emotional roller coaster. You feel like you just want to quit and walk away. Your legs cramp, halfway.
Yeah.
And you feel like, why am I doing this? But, by gritting your teeth and pushing forward and finally crossing the finishing line, I think that sense of accomplishment It's really aesthetic. And I see that as an inspiration as well. So if I can run 2 marathons, perhaps, I stand a better chance of solving some of the challenges that I face, in my everyday life. So I think it is a great training ground, if I may, for whatever that comes next.
There's no better mental test than, to me, the last 6 miles, for me at least, the last 5 or 6 miles of a marathon. At that point, the training is gone. The physical nature of it is gone. It's just all mental toughness at that point.
Yeah.
Kah Kit, thank you so much for joining TRM Talks. I look forward to spending lots of runs with you to talk more, to hear more about the amazing work you're doing. Thank you for joining TRM Talks.
Thanks for having me.
My favorite part of the conversation was really the journey, but I feel like the journey informed so much of the substance of the conversation today. To start out as a regulator at the Central Bank of Malaysia, but then also have this piece of 3 years as a prosecutor working on enforcement in the financial services sector, and then to BIS, where you're a standard setter, where you have access to sandboxes with incredibly cool names, as we joked, but then also take all of that work, the enforcement, the central banker, the BIS experimentation, and then take that to the private sector where you're having to execute on all of these things, where you're actually putting it into the real world, working with commercial and the retail sector. So my biggest takeaway is it's so important to bring that regulatory expertise to the private sector, and that's really what we see here, but also bring that private sector expertise to regulators, which I think we're seeing more and more across the ecosystem. I asked him one question at one point about digital payments, cross-border payments, and I thought to myself, as I was asking the question, I'm not sure that I could ask a better person on earth about cross-border payments in this moment, having built it as a regulator, having worked on standards, and now implementing it today. On the next TRM Talks, I sit down with Matt Hogan of the Connecticut State Police and a special guest to talk about the anatomy of a cryptocurrency scam and how to investigate. If you love the show, leave a review wherever you're listening to it. Follow us on LinkedIn to subscribe to our newsletter, The Weekly Roundup, to get the latest news on crypto regulation, compliance, and investigation.
TRM Talks is brought to you by TRM Labs, the leading provider of blockchain intelligence and anti-money laundering software. This episode was produced in partnership with Voltage Productions. The music for this show was provided by Ecolix.
Now, let's get back to building.